Hello everyone and welcome to this tactical fly fisher fly tying tutorial. Today we're going to be tying another perdigon. This perdigon is called the Diabaetis or the Diabetes, depending upon how you want to pronounce it. It's going to be in the UMCO catalog in 2023, but you get a sneak peek to learn how to tie it by watching this channel. This perdigon, as the name suggests, represents a Baetis nymph. Baetis mayflies are another small dark mayfly that are nearly ubiquitous in just about every trout stream, so this is a good bug to have in your box nearly anywhere you go. It's imitative, but there's a little bit of a hot spot and some sheen to help it stand out in the drift. So I've used it everywhere from really technical tailwaters to freestones and in between, and it's worked well. Spin some up and let me know how they do. Let's get tying. Okay, let's get started tying this Diabaetis. This is a size 20 hook. This is a Dohiku 302 SP. The UMCO Perdi jig is also very similar and works great for this. The size 20 in that hook is just a little bit smaller if you want a smaller version of this. I've got some 16-aught black Vivis here. And I'm just going to wrap that 16-aught down to near the back of the shank. I don't want it to go on the curve of the shank because I want to tie my tails in nice and straight instead of having them angled downward. Now I've got some coq de leon for the tail. I'm going to take 3 to 4 fibers of that, no more. If you add a big clump of coq de leon to the back of a perdigon, all you're doing is slowing your sink rate. You're not helping the function of the fly at all. And then I'm just going to measure about the length of the hook shank, transfer over to my left hand, and pinch, and then put my thread in between those fingers as well and pinch wrap it. So I've got control of the thread between my thumb and my index finger. I'm wrapping around the hook shank loosely with no tension, coming back up vertically, and then applying tension and making one more tight wrap there to lock it in. And then I'm looking at it and it's nice and straight, right in line with the hook shank. So then I'll wrap the thread forward. And my slot on my bead is upside down right now, so I'm going to turn that over. You need the slot facing down so the bead can curve around the curve of that hook shank right behind the eye on that jig hook. Now I'm going to tie in some small silver wire. So I tie it in on the far side of the hook with a couple loose wraps, and then I just pull it back and I look at it until the wire is under my thread wraps there, so I don't have to trim it or break it off. And then once that's tied down, I come back forward with the thread, and I'm going to tie in my other body material, which is Semperfli Perdigon body in iridescent purple. Same thing, tie that in loosely, and then pull it back under the thread wraps, and then wrap back to the base of the tails there, but without affecting them. And I'm just going to make a few wraps on the body there to cover up any gaps in thread where the wire or the tinsel's peeking through. But I'm not trying to make any sort of taper. I want this fly to be as thin as it can be. It doesn't need to have some sort of natural looking taper to make it fish better. I want thin to win to sink faster. Now I'm going to switch my thread color so I can put a hot spot on here. This is fluorescent orange 16-aught Vivis. I've tried this fly with and without the hot spot, and for me it's worked better with the hot spot, even on technical tailwaters. But feel free to try both versions, and with and without a hot spot, and see how it works for you. Now I'm taking the perdigon body. I'm going to make 1, 2, 3, about 3.5 wraps. Tie it down. And you'll notice that I did not wrap it with touching turns. So the perdigon body, I've left gaps in between those turns, and that's where the wire is going to go. So I'm wrapping the wire onto bare thread that's in between the wraps, and that way the wire doesn't slide around on that tinsel. And the resin will also bind to the fly a little bit better if it's got some bare thread to bind to and not just the tinsel. Okay. All right, now I'm just going to whip finish. If you don't have much thread there, you can do a few extra turns in your whip finish to build up your hot spot a little bit, but I just did 3 turns there, and then I'm gonna come in with my scissors and just nick that thread as close to the hook shank as possible. These are Tiemco razor scissors. They have a really, really fine tip on them so I can get flush. But if you don't have something like that, like some scissors with a really fine tip, then use a box cutter or something like that with a fine razor blade on it, and then you can come in and nick the thread to get it flush. Okay, the next step is the wing case, and I'm going to use nail polish for the wing case. This is just black nail polish that we sell in the shop. I'm going to wipe the brush on the inside of the bottle to get as much of the excess off as possible, and then just barely touch the nail polish to the top of it. There we go. Now if you have much of a slot opening there that's exposed, you may have to do 2 applications, but the slot on this bead was kind of covered mostly up by that thread, so it's just about perfect. And normally I will tie this fly to this point and stage tie them, so I'll do 6 to 12 or however many of them I'm going to do to this point, and then put them on foam, let that wing case dry, and then come back and put some resin on them. But I don't have a batch like that right now, so I'm gonna just put this resin on carefully and hope that the nail polish doesn't smear. All right, so I have some Solres bone dry, and I'm gonna put this on nice and thin. Little trick to that Solres: if it ever gets crystallized on you, go and put it in the microwave for 10 to 15 seconds, and it will become liquid again and nice and clear. I had to do that today because I tie over my detached garage now, and my resin gets awfully cold up here and it tends to crystallize. So the microwave made it nice and good as new. Okay, hit it with the UV light, give it a few spins, and that is the finished Diabaetis. One of my favorite Baetis mayfly patterns that has a little bit of flair as well to set it apart in the drift. Catches a lot of fish for me, and I'm sure it will for you as well. So give a few a spin at the vise and go try them out on the water. Thanks for watching.
I'm Wilford Brimley, and I have the Diabetes. I'm sitting here on this horse today to talk to you about Liberty Medical. They'll deliver your diabetes testing supplies directly to your door.